Right now, you're looking at a Boeing 737 Takeoff from the best seat in the house, but behind every flip of a switch and call out you hear on this flight. Deck is a lesson learned from a past tragedy. Today, we're riding along for a full 737 takeoff, while breaking down the critical aviation accident insights that changed how pilots fly this exact maneuver forever. Let's get into it. And I'd like to welcome you all back to another episode of Aviation Accidents Insights. And I'm your host, John Chav. We're going to bring you a bullseye view for exactly what your pilot is seeing and looking at. A view from the actual cockpit of the airplane. So if you ever wonder what the pilot sees, this is it. So we're going to be joining us 737 as they pull back from the gates, getting ready to take off. So sit back, relax, enjoy the flight, and leave a comment in the comment sections. Exactly what you think of this view from the cockpit. And it looks like we're going to be taxiing right now. Get in position for takeoff.
On runway 08 left.
Kalau makan dosa dapat itu Malaysia sistem apa tu? Itu pasti orang dapat setengah. Kita dapat macam setengah. Macam sama. Ready?
And it looks like we had been cleared for takeoff. V1. V1 is past the point of no return. Once the aircraft hits V1, going down the runway, you have no choice but to take off. Even if you have some kind of malfunction, you have no choice but to go ahead and get into the air and try to figure out what the problem is once you're airborne. Aircraft is going to climb to about 32 to 35,000 feet before it levels off. Looks like we're going to be making a left bank return though.
Por la derecha, 217, localizador, siguiente derecha, 209. Speedbird 8270, 12785. 27505, Speedbird 8270, that's final vector, return approach, right left. 415, heading 220, final vector, return approach, right left. Rumbo, evidente, nuestro 6 Lima Whisky, buenas en radar, por la derecha, rumbo 050. La derecha, rumbo 050, Lima Whisky. 125, en Europa 098, rumbo 220, Europa, revisa, igual aquí la nota.
aviation, accidents, and insights. And I'm your host, John J. You ever wondered what the pilot sees? This is it. We are aboard the 737.
Approaching 1-8 left.
Plus 100. Minimum.
It looks like we're going to be coming back in for a landing.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
And we are on the ground, just back. Get an exclusive front row seat to a Boeing 737. Takeoff from the pilot's perspective. Search engine optimization metadata. In this video, we dive deep into real-world aviation safety and pilot insights. Experience the raw power of the jet engines and get a clear view of the runway as we break down the critical flight procedures, instrumentation, and standard operating procedures SOPs happening in the cockpit during the departure phase. In this breakdown, we cover the critical checks pilots make during the takeoff roll V-speeds, thrust settings, and engine parameters, cockpit, resource management and situational awareness, what the captain and first officer are monitoring during initial climb out. Subscribe to the channel for more behind-the-scenes flight, deck action, and in-depth aviation safety analysis. 1. The rollout and engine stabilization to pull up safety. Explain why pilots advance throttles to roughly 40%. N1 and let the engine stabilize before hitting. TOGA, it prevents asymmetric thrust, which can violently pull the aircraft off the center line. The TOGA switch, point out the exact moment the pilot presses. The takeoff, go around TOGA. Buttons on the throttles. Note how the auto throttle takes over the drive. The engines to calculated takeoff thrust. 2. The 3 critical V-speeds, the core analytics. Your viewers will want to know exactly what the pilots are calling out. 80. Knots to cross-check. Explain that the pilot monitoring PM calls 80 knots, so both pilots can cross-check their primary flight displays PFDs. This is the gate where the captain transitions focus from instruments to looking strictly down the runway V1 decision speed, the most critical milestone. Before V1, pilots will abort the takeoff for serious malfunctions. After V1, the plane must take off, even if an engine fails. There is physically not enough runway left to stop safely, VR rotate. The exact moment the pilot flying smoothly pulls back on the yoke to pitch the nose up to roughly 15 degrees, V2. Safety speed, the minimum speed the aircraft must maintain to climb safely if one engine fails right after liftoff. 3. High speed versus low speed. Rejected takeoffs are TO. Tie this directly to your aviation accidents insights theme. The danger zone. Explain that an RTO above 100 knots is incredibly dangerous and highly prone to causing brake fires or runway excursions. The shift in criteria. Inform your audience that as the plane speeds past 100 knots, pilots will ignore minor master cautions and only abort the takeoff for major issues, like a catastrophic engine failure, a severe fire, or an uncontained aircraft control failure. For post-liftoff milestones positive rate, gear up the moment the vertical speed indicator shows a steady climb. The PM calls positive rate and the PF responds gear up. 400 feet. This is typically the altitude where the pilot selects a roll mode like LNAV to begin automated lateral navigation, thrust, reduction, and acceleration altitudes. Explain that at 1,000 to 1,500 feet, the aircraft will automatically reduce thrust to climb power to preserve engine life and meet local airport noise abatement laws. Phase 1, lineup and power stabilization. Lean 2 Sisher knots. The flight director FD check. Point out the green and magenta lines on the primary flight display PFD. Explain that before the tires even roll, the flight computer has calculated the exact pitch and roll targets for the initial climb, the 40% spool up. Mention that the pilot smoothly pushes the thrust levers to roughly 40%. N1, they pause briefly to ensure both CFM 5-6 or LEAP engines stabilize equally. This prevents a dangerous asymmetric thrust vector that could veer the plane off the centerline toga engagement. The pilot presses the takeoff, go around button. Emphasize that the thrust levers move on their own as the autothrottle takes command. The pilot's hands stay firmly gripped on the throttles until the aircraft reaches V1 speed just in case an immediate reject is needed. Phase 2. The high-speed roll. Sisher to Sisherza. Knots 80 knots. Checked. Explain that this callout is a critical safety gate. The pilot monitoring checks their airspeed indicator against the pilot flying's indicator. It confirms the instruments are working accurately. At this speed, the rudder becomes aerodynamic enough to steer the plane, allowing the pilot to transition from using nose wheels steering to the rudder pedals. Thrust set. The crew confirms that the engines have perfectly hit the pre-calculated takeoff thrust needed for the plane's specific weight, weather, and runway length, the sound of precision. Tell your viewers to listen for the nose wheel hitting the runway centerline lights. It sounds like a rapid thumping. A perfect takeoff means keeping that sound perfectly centered. Phase 3. The rotation and liftoff. The transition, V. Rotate. Explain that at V1, the pilot moves their hand off the throttles. The plane is now flying no matter what happens. At rotate VR, the pilot flying smoothly pulls the control column back, aiming for a pitch rate of about 2 to 3 degrees per second tail strike prevention. Note that the pilot cannot pull up too aggressively. Tail strikes occur if the nose is lifted past roughly 11 degrees, while the main wheels are still firmly planted on the tarmac. Phase 4. Clean up and climb. E10s off feet, positive rate. Gear up. As soon as the altimeter and vertical speed indicators show a steady climb, the landing gear is retracted to eliminate aerodynamic drag. Flap retraction schedule. Watch the airspeed tape on the PFD as the plane accelerates. Past specific speed bugs indicators. The pilot will progressively retract the flaps from flaps 5 or 1, cleaning up the wing for high-speed flight autopilot engagement. Once the plane passes 1,000 to 1,500 feet, the crew typically engages the autopilot. The flight switches from a high-focus manual exercise to a highly monitored automated climb profile. And that is how a textbook perfect Boeing 737 takeoff is executed from the flight deck. It looks simple because of the incredible engineering, automation, and intense training these pilots undergo to make every flight routine. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the cockpit, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Aviation. Accidents Insights for more breakdowns of flight safety, procedures, and real-world incidents. What part of the takeoff sequence surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next